The wait is almost over. The World Cup is nearly here. While this World Cup is going to be very different in many ways to every other, it is still impossible to not be excited for football's best and most prestigious tournament. And in 2022, picking a favourite is as difficult as ever, but in this video that's what I'm going to try to do, as well as discussing a few teams who I think have the potential to surprise. So let's jump straight in with the nations who are traditionally the big hitters. The batch of teams who would normally be considered frontrunners are really interesting in 2022. England, France and Germany have all got great squads, but are entering the tournament in questionable form. Belgium are ageing, Spain look promising but are maybe not quite ready and lack a clinical number 9, and Portugal's main man has had a less than ideal club season up until this point, and there are worries that he may prevent their other key players from playing their best football. So that just leaves the two South American giants, Brazil and Argentina, who are in the best shape. The recent World Cups have been dominated by the European sides, but with question marks over all of them, these two are considered the favourites by many, including myself. So let's delve deep into both of them, starting with Brazil. Since losing to Argentina in the 2021 Copa America final, the Seleção have seemed a different team. Manager Tite has now been at the helm for 6 years and has transformed them from the side who were fortunate to make the semi-finals in the 2014 World Cup before having their weaknesses brutally exposed by Germany, and then had 2 dismal Copa America campaigns with early exits in both of them. At this point, Tite took over, and the 2018 World Cup saw an improvement before lifting the Copa America in 2019 and reaching the final in 2021. Since that defeat to Argentina, Brazil have not lost a single match and have looked truly frightening in most of their games, breezing through their qualifying group. The last year has seen the emergence of Rafinha, uncapped until October 2021, but is now seemingly an undisputed starter, and likewise, Vinicius Jr. has taken his game to the next level in that same time period and is also now a guaranteed first choice on the left wing, even though he didn't start a single match in last year's Copa America. On top of this, Neymar is in the form of his life, Thiago Silva is still going strong, and an unexpected bonus for Tite is that his first choice duo in central midfield, Casemiro and Fred, are now club teammates, which you would imagine help them develop a really strong understanding. This is Brazil's most likely lineup based on their previous matches. The only question marks are who starts up front. Richarlison has been the main man in recent months, but with injury doubts hanging over him and Gabriel Jesus formed for Arsenal, there is now a decision to be made. There's also the Flamengo striker Pedro, who has been on fire in the Brazilian league and made the most recent squad at the expense of Jesus. Another possibility is that perhaps in games against sterner opposition, Tite may choose to tighten up his midfield with one of Fabinho, Bruno Guimaraes or Lucas Paquetá, as on paper a front four of Neymar, Vinicius, Rafinha and Richarlison does look incredibly attacking. Rafinha is probably the most likely fall guy if Tite opts to bring in an additional presence in the middle of the park. But the biggest question seems to be at fullback. Alexandre will probably start at left back, but has competition in the shape of Alex Telles, while at right back Danilo has often been favoured, who is solid but not magnificent. With Marquinhos and Thiago Silva set to start at centre back, leaving no room for the excellent Eder Militao, there is a chance that he starts at right back, and this extra solidity may help Brazil get away with playing so many of their wide array of attacking talent. Whichever players do secure the fullback positions, this selection of players doesn't seem as strong as in other areas of the pitch, but let's be honest, it's hardly a weak link. Remember, in 2018, France won it with their 2 fullbacks both being converted centre-backs, so limited fullbacks are certainly not a barrier to success. Brazil are in my opinion the rightful favourites to lift the Jules Rimet. They have a quality manager and a ludicrously good team, shown by the fact that most, if not all of these players on screen will most likely not even be starters. One final question mark is the fact that this side is yet to be tested by a major European side, so it is tough to compare, but with their form entering Qatar, you would definitely fancy them. If you thought Brazil's form was good, just wait until you see Argentina's. They, incredibly, have not lost a game in over 3 years, going back to the semi-final of the Copa America in 2019 when they were dispatched by Brazil, but this is a very different team to that one. Let's talk about the elephant in the room first, Lionel Messi. In what will be the last World Cup for Messi, he is looking to crown his legendary career with the highest honour in football, and therefore you can imagine that his drive and determination will be absolutely through the roof. After a dip in form at his first season at PSG, he is now back to playing at his normal absurd level and could once again be considered the best in the world, even at 35. But what's different now for Messi is that he no longer has to do it alone. In 2014, he dragged a painfully mediocre Argentina to the final, and had Gonzalo Higuain and Rodrigo Palacios not missed glorious chances, they could have won it. In 2018, Argentina were dire, with a shambolic defence and manager Jorge Sampaoli not able to work out what his strongest 11 was. But now they have a settled squad, packed with great players thanks to the emergence since 2018 of players such as Christian Romero, Emi Martinez, Lautaro and Lisandro Martinez, Rodrigo de Paul, Alexis McAllister, Papu Gomez and Nico Gonzalez, turning this squad into a real force. The perfect demonstration of this was in the final of last year's Copa America, where after a wonderful tournament, Messi actually had quite a poor game. Had this happened in 2014 or 2018, there would have been no question of the fact that without their star man being at 10 out of 10, Argentina would have lost. But in the Copa America, Messi's teammates stepped up and got over the line. So for the first time in years, La Albiceleste are a team, not just one outstanding player surrounded by a supporting cast. What's been most impressive about Argentina lately is that manager Lionel Scaloni has managed to transform the leaky defence from 2018 into a formidable one, conceding just 6 goals in the 22 matches since the start of the Copa America. Emi Martinez and Christian Romero becoming first choice have been massively important for this, and they also have a sturdy and effective midfield which would have been comprised of Gio Lo Celso, Leandro Paredes and Rodrigo de Paul, but while editing this, Lo Celso has just been ruled out for injury. So the most likely alternative to Lo Celso is probably Guido Rodriguez of Betis, but Scaloni has plenty of other good options in the middle of the park, such as Alexis McAllister, Enzo Fernandez or possibly Papu Gomez. And then there's the attack. Of course there's Messi, but Lautaro Martinez's form has been astonishing for both club and country, and he has cemented himself as the first choice number 9, with Messi playing off him. The third member of the attack is less certain, but Scaloni is spoilt for choice with a raft of great options, shown on screen. Unlike Brazil, Argentina have also been tested against a European side, which they passed with flying colours in the finalissima match against European champions Italy when they utterly blew them away. It's very difficult to split Argentina and Brazil. If they both win their groups, they'll be on course to play each other in the semi-finals, and while Brazil I would say have a marginally stronger squad, Argentina's recent record is as good if not better, so in a game like that it would be impossible to call. The determining factor you would think will be Messi. Winning this World Cup would in the eyes of many deify him as the game's greatest ever player, and with the quality of the team around him and the hunger he'll have in his final World Cup, that could be enough to do it. Moving past the favourites, I've picked 4 more sides to analyse. These are Denmark, Canada, Ecuador and Japan, who I think can really cause a surprise or two. In the case of the latter 3, many will expect them to go out in the groups, but in my opinion will not be easy opponents and could reach the knockouts. Denmark, on the other hand, aren't exactly underdogs after their impressive Euros last year, but I still don't think they're being taken seriously enough. Let's start with them. Despite the dark shadow cast over Denmark's tournament due to the terrible events in their first game, Kasper Hjulmand's team were brilliant all tournament long, reaching the semi-finals where they were somewhat unlucky to lose to England. With Eriksen now back in the fold, you wouldn't bet against them being able to replicate that this winter. They are in Group D with France, Tunisia and Australia, which you would imagine will be a battle between them and France for first, although it's worth noting that they recently beat France home and away in the Nations League. With Les Bleus being out of sorts going into Qatar, in bad form, key players injured and the usual infighting we associate with France, Denmark will fancy their chances to win the group, which is a crucial point in Group D, as second will almost certainly have to face Argentina in the last 16, whilst whoever comes first will have a comparatively easier match. Denmark have a great squad, with this likely to be their first choice team. Joachim Mæhle and Simon Kjær were standout players at the Euros, so Denmark will be counting on them to produce the goods, while the likes of Thomas Delaney and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg are ever dependable, and striker Kasper Dolberg always does well for the national team, despite his lack of consistency at club level. However, question marks lie elsewhere. Kasper Schmeichel has experienced an alarming dip in form in the last year, and young starlet Mikkel Damsgaard has played very little football since the Euros due to injury. So Hjulmand will need to get this pair back up to speed, but if he can, then Denmark should be taken very seriously as a genuine threat to go very, very deep. Another interesting side is Canada. Competing in their second ever World Cup and the first since 1986 when they lost every game without scoring, the North Americans have traditionally not been a good footballing nation. However, in recent years, football has exploded in popularity in the country, resulting in a new generation of exciting youngsters coming through. The most high profile of these is of course Alphonso Davies, who plays much further forward for Canada than with Bayern, and this is reflected by an impressive 12 goals in 26 caps. The other star man is Lille forward Jonathan David, who has been easily one of the best players in Ligue 1 in recent years, with 9 goals and 3 assists in 12 matches at the time of writing. Canada qualified with ease, scoring the most and conceding the fewest in North America, a stark contrast in fortunes to the 2014 qualifiers 10 years ago, when they were taken apart 8-1 by Honduras to knock them out. Les Rouges will play fast-paced, exciting football with lightning-quick wingers in Davies and Tajon Buchanan, who will create for David, as well as Kyle Larin, the top scorer in the CONCACAF qualifying. Another important player will be midfield linchpin Steven Eustachio of Porto, who manager John Herdman referred to as a coach on the field. He's able to dictate play and break up opposition attacks. Here's Canada's likely starting 11. Their group isn't easy, but not impossible for Canada to get out of. They'll need to finish above one of Belgium or Croatia to qualify, but with major question marks over the age of Belgium's squad and the form of key players, Canada may just be able to put the final nail in the coffin of their golden generation. Let's move on to Ecuador, probably the most unfancied team out of the ones I've decided to talk about. With no real historical prestige, being just one of 2 South American countries to have never won the Copa America, and this being just the 4th time they've qualified for the World Cup, anyone unfamiliar with La Tricolor will probably expect them to be a punching bag. However, Ecuador have been on the rise recently, in 2019 becoming under-20 champions of South America, with a huge amount of quality youngsters coming through. Many of these have already been snapped up by European clubs, the most notable being their 2 star men, Brighton pair Moises Caicedo and Pervis Estupiñán. This young side gave a great account of themselves in qualifying, knocking out much more established footballing nations such as Colombia, Peru and Chile, and will now set their sights on causing an upset at the World Cup. They're in Group A with the Netherlands, Senegal and Qatar. Netherlands are the overwhelming favourites and African champions Senegal are understandably favoured for second, but to rule out the South Americans would be ill-advised. While editing this video, it was reported that Senegal's star man Sadio Mane will miss the World Cup through injury, causing me to change my script, and now it's being reported that he is in fact going to make it, so I've had to change my script again. He will definitely be in Qatar, but we won't know exactly what condition he's in until we actually see him play, and if it's anything less than 100%, that will give Ecuador a really strong chance of getting second ahead of Senegal. It's a physical team, packed with pace and strength, playing an impressively high line and best when hitting teams on the counter. Their left flank is a point of strength, with Estupiñán bombing on from left back, while Enner Valencia, yeah, that one, he's still going, will be cutting inside and shooting. Their qualifying campaign was a bit of a tale of 2 halves. Early on they were lethal going forward and scored an amazing amount of goals, but were also very suspect at the back. However, since centre-back Felix Torres came into the side, the defence has become much more solid, but worryingly, the goals have dried up a bit. Their most recent 5 matches have seen a clean sheet kept in every single one of them, but only 3 goals scored, so manager Gustavo Alfaro's task is to get his side to reclaim its sharp edge whilst also retaining its solidity. If they can do that, you can expect Ecuador to become one of the tournament's surprise teams. The most obvious thing to note about Japan is that their group is brutal. They're up against Spain and Germany, both of whom have star-studded teams, and the other country is Costa Rica, who are hardly pushovers themselves. Japan, however, are entering the tournament in great form, and not just against the teams who you'd expect them to beat. The Samurai have pulled out wins against the US, South Korea, Ghana, Australia and Serbia in the last 18 months, and have scored a huge amount of goals in that time. Japan play a slick, fast-paced, passing style of football, generally in a 4-2-3-1, and this is their most likely starting 11. Daichi Kamada is the star man, a dazzlingly creative number 10 for Frankfurt, who at the time of writing has scored 9 goals in 16 games, including 2 in the Champions League. They also have plenty more good players, such as wingers Takumi Minamino and Junya Ito, all-action midfielder Wataru Endo of Stuttgart, Kaoru Mitoma, who has 5 goals in 9 caps and has looked good in flashes for Brighton, and Hidemasa Morita, who recently signed for Sporting. Kyogo Furuhashi, who has 27 goals in 46 appearances since signing for Celtic, and Take Kubo, formerly of Real Madrid, are unlikely to even start, highlighting the quality of attacking options in the squad. It's also worth casting our minds back to 2018, when they came within fingertips of knocking out Belgium to reach the quarter-finals, in a great performance only barely outmatched by an impressive fight back from one of the best teams in the world at the time. Since then they've been bolstered by the emergence of players such as Kamada and Takehiro Tomiyasu, and the current manager, Hajime Moriyasu, was the assistant in that World Cup, so he's got plenty of experience with this side. With all of this in mind, it's not outside the realms of possibility that Japan could qualify ahead of Spain or Germany. Those two will obviously take points off of each other when they play, and with how strong Japan's team looks, it leaves them well placed to capitalise on any slip-ups and sneak into second place, which if they do, means a clash with Belgium is possible in the last 16. Maybe the Samurai can enact their revenge on them this time around and make it to the latter stages of the competition. So there you have it. I think Brazil and Argentina are the 2 teams most likely to win the World Cup, and I reckon the likes of Denmark, Canada, Ecuador and Japan could definitely cause a surprise or 2. Hopefully I've done a good job summarising each team's strengths and weaknesses, as well as dissecting some of the lesser known teams. Now let's just sit back and enjoy the World Cup. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and come on England!